And the evidence will show that the opposing party, the one who is requesting alimony today, is perfectly capable of being self-sufficient. He just chooses not to be. So let me introduce you all a little bit more to my client. So Mr. Piner is 41 years old. He is employed and he is good at what he does. So he works with computers and technology. He's also a gamer. He has skills and talents that he has developed over his own years and hard work and dedication to his profession. And he has always supported himself. He's never expected anyone to carry his financial weight. Now, here's what the evidence is going to show about the opposing party. He is 31 years old. He is young. He is healthy. And he is perfectly capable of working. And yet, for the entirety of the party's marriage, he has chosen not to work. He did not stay home to raise any children. There aren't any children. He did not stay home because of a disability. There's not a disability. He stayed home because he wanted to, and he is still under the belief that he deserves to be taken care of. As bad as the financial and domestic situation was, it actually gets worse. So because this case is not just about money, it's also about abuse. So the evidence is going to show through testimony and evidence that we present through exhibits that the opposing party, Mr. Terry, physically abused my client. He manipulated him, he controlled him, so much so that there's actually an active protective order between the parties. So there is a temporary protective order right now in place that protects the opposing party from even being around my client due to the abuse. And to take it one step further, he's been convicted of his abuse towards my client, and he's actually on house arrest right now by way of a ankle monitor. So the man that has been so abusive to my client is now sitting here asking you all to force my client to keep taking care of him financially while he doesn't work. 31 years old, mind you. So let that sink in. The opposing party is going to make claims in this trial. He's going to claim that my client got rid of marital funds or he wasted and hid money. I'm not quite certain how much you all know about filing a divorce and going through a divorce process, but what generally happens is when you file a divorce case, you're able to go through something that's called discovery. What happens is discovery is you're able to discover the finances or anything else that you would like to find out about that your spouse has that you don't have a clue about. So you can request bank statements, you can request retirement statements, you can request deeds, assets, credit card statements, etc., to be able to trace to see the party's money. You can do that for upwards of the duration that the parties have been married. What I will say is that the parties in this matter participated in discovery, requested all the documentation from my client. There was no discovery disputes, and they are not going to be able to prove or show any evidence, any bank statement, any receipts, any document of my client hiding any money. And they had every right to do so during the discovery process. The opposing party believes, well, he wants you to decide whether he should get alimony. He wants all of you to say that my client has to keep paying for a man who abuses him. The opposing party believes that because he was married to my client for 8 years, he is entitled to be taken care of for the rest of his life at 31, mind you. He believes he can sit at home, do nothing, abuse his husband, and collect a paycheck. And that is what he wants. That is what he wants you all to do for him. Here's what we're asking for. We're just asking y'all to end the marriage. We're not asking y'all for anything. The marriage is irretrievably broken. There's no hope of reconciliation. We're asking that you deny his request for alimony. He needs to go get a job and employment. We are asking that you assign their debts fairly. My client is willing to keep all of the debts that are in his name. We're asking that he keeps his debts. You all get rid of the marriage and deny his request for alimony. My client would also like to keep the dog. And other than that, that is all we need you all to do. This is a able-bodied man who is sitting here trying to get 14 of you all to award him my client's money because he doesn't want to take care of himself. And I believe that the evidence is going to show that that simply is unfair, and you all just need to confirm the divorce.
Thank you, Ms. Yarber. Mr. Polanco, are you giving an opening now or are you reserving?
I will. So as Ms. Yarber said, I want to thank every single one of you for taking the time to fulfill your civic duty and be with us possibly for the next 2 days. I think if we run at a good pace, we might be able to get through this in 48 hours by tomorrow, Wednesday. When my client, Christopher Terry, learned that he was getting divorced by Mr. Piner, he was in jail at the Fulton County Jail. Now, when you receive papers out of jail, it makes you question, well, is there something else going on here? Right? That's certainly the question I had when I went to visit him at the jail in August of 2025. Now, at the time, Christopher Terry, who weighs maybe 130 pounds, if I'm being generous, looked into my eyes and said, I'm in this situation. I don't know what to do about it. I was given papers for a divorce and I have 30 days to respond. If I don't respond, divorce goes by default to my husband, right? His name is David Piner, and this is his story. Now you're going to be hearing a lot of that story over the next couple of hours and possibly, a couple hours. And both Ms. Yarber and I will have opportunity to speak with Mr. Piner and ask him, what this is all about. Now, you've heard from Mrs. Yarber what this is about, at least in an opening remark sense, right? According to them, their side, they want to be granted a divorce, and just each side walks in their own, respective directions, and we call it a day. But like I said, Christopher Terry has a story to tell when it comes to all of that, because we didn't ask all of you to take time off of your jobs, your lives, to just dissolve a marriage where each party gets to walk in their own direction, because frankly, we could have done that ourselves, or they could have done that themselves. But Christopher Terry, my client, feels that he has a story to tell that no one up to this point has heard, and he would like someone to hear it. So as I said, my client was was served with complaint for divorce in September of 2025, and he had to answer within 30 days. He did so, but as part of the answer, he counterclaimed, meaning that David Piner was asking for the divorce to be granted on the ground of an irretrievably broken marriage, which is the 13th cause of divorce. There's 13 causes. Now, in the old days, there used to be 12, adultery, separation after a year, and you had to prove that your spouse had been guilty of one of those 12 causes before you could be granted a divorce by a civil court. But sometime, in the 60s, 70s, as sort of no-fault divorce became popular, they added this 13th ground, which is the irretrievably broken marriage ground. And basically what it means is that we just, we can't get along. We just want the marriage to be over. It's not that he was unfaithful or I was unfaithful. It's just that, this is the 13th ground. So that's what David Piner is alleging in his complaint for divorces. We just have an irretrievably broken marriage. We have irreconcilable differences is sort of a different way that it's known by. And that's what he assumed. But as part of the answer, we counterclaimed that there specifically one cause for the divorce should be granted, which is what my client is saying, is that the divorce should be granted based on cruelty. Because my client is saying that his husband, Mr. David Piner, has been cruel to him. Okay? Now, so that's the number one thing that you're being asked to decide, and I think Ms. Yarber spoke to it, is the ground for the divorce. What is the reason for the divorce? Is it going to be that we have irreconcilable differences, or is it going to be an at-fault ground of cruelty, which is what my client says that his husband was? Okay. So once the ground for divorce gets settled, the second thing that we're asking for is to, excuse me, to discuss the issue of alimony. Alimony is a word that comes from ancient Rome, it basically referred to nourishment or food sources, maintenance. And it's an old concept that applied usually in marriages where a man maybe was the sole breadwinner because women maybe didn't have sort of a job, sort of out there in the economy before the 19th century. And maybe they would be married to their husbands for 40, 50, 60 years, and then maybe they get divorced later in life, and then, so that's where the concept of alimony comes from. Now, alimony is a relatively rare thing to do. It's not something that's often asked for in cases. It's asked in certain types of cases, usually high net value cases, because sometimes where there is one party that is the only provider and another party that is not, there's a very sort of obvious imbalance of power. And in certain situations, the person that is the person that is not working maybe doesn't have the skills, doesn't know how to get a job, hasn't gone out there. That's somewhat, as you will hear, what's happened with Christopher Terry, but that's not entirely the story as to why alimony is being asked for. In a sense, alimony is also being requested in this case because of the treatment of and the nature of the relationship. Now, the evidence is going to show, and we're going to hear testimony from both sides, and for the most part, I think they'll agree on most of the same things, but perhaps they may disagree on how to interpret them. But one of the things that you're going to hear is that they met approximately 16 years ago, okay, in 2010. They were both gamers, they met online, and they sort of established this sort of second life type of life, and they decided to meet, dated for a couple of years, lived together. Now, a lot of things happened during those years, and you may hear about some of them, until they get married in 2018. Now, legally, anything that a marriage accumulates during a marriage really only begins accumulating once you get married. So it's really 2018 onward that we should be counting as far as like the marital estate, right? Whenever we distribute, what belongs to which party, et cetera, et cetera. But during the course of the case, we want you to hear what exactly happened during that marriage, okay? Now, every marriage is going to have difficulties, and so there is nothing particularly extraordinary about this particular one, right? Every life has challenges, every marriage has challenges, just being fair to all sides. However, when you start hearing the details of this particular marriage, what you start seeing is sort of this recurring theme, okay? The recurring theme is going to be that Mr. Piner is the sole breadwinner in the relationship. He has a very relatively high prestige, high paying job. And my client is sort of staying at home, okay, and providing the, getting the food and the cooking and doing all the housework, okay? But as part of that dynamic, there's sort of like a very obvious imbalance of power, whereby Mr. Piner is controlling Mr. Terry to such a degree that it's just a very obvious imbalance of power, okay? And the relationship is, as Ms. Barber describes, emotionally abusive. It's emotionally cruel. There's a lot of back and forth, and a lot of it's going to be evidenced by text messages, because we literally have text messages covering a period of 10 years where you can see literally both parties' description and wording as to how they're describing what they're going through. And there's a lot of emotional abuse. We're not alleging physical abuse, we never have, okay? Now, however, as I said, Mr. Terry was served at the jail with a complaint for divorce. And the divorce paper said We want a divorce, each side gets to go its own way. I keep the dog, I keep everything, I give you my debts, but I don't give you any of my assets. Those are the terms. You have 30 days within which to respond. So when I first met Mr. Terry around that time in August of 2025, I didn't know what to make of it. I took the case entirely pro bono. I'm not getting paid $1 for this. I'm doing this entirely out of my sense of what justice means or is supposed to mean. Because I thought that what I was hearing was a bit outrageous. And you will be hearing the details of that over the next couple of hours. The text messages that you will hear and will be submitted and admitted into evidence are going to contain a lot of statements by Mr. Piner that describe exactly how he's viewing what's going on, right? In other words, go get me a soda and a burrito. Don't spend $20. So whenever the situation has to do to benefit him, he's very liberal and giving and caring. But when it comes to feeding Mr. Terry's and nourishing his needs, he can be quite selfish. The dog, you're going to see that one of the issues that is being discussed and being debated is gets to keep the dog. Now, we are definitely not bringing you here because of a dog dispute, but when Mr. Terry read in that complaint inside the jailhouse that, the person that's suing him in the jail and put him there in the first place wants to keep the dog too, that was sort of like this ultimate offense, right, to him. And, and so he's asking for it at the end of it, okay? He's asking for alimony, not for the rest of his life, as Ms. Barber suggests. We are only asking for alimony for a relatively temporary period of time that he can get on his feet. Mr. Terry has not worked ever in his life, except for his husband, Mr. Pine, since he was very young. So you will see documents regarding the vet visits, the dog contract, when the dog was purchased, who the dog belongs to, et cetera, et cetera. You're gonna be reading the text messages where Mr. Piner opines about, different subjects, religion, and other things. And as you hear testimony from both parties, like the court suggested, take a close look at two things. Number one is just sort of their demeanor, and then number two is the consistency of their statements, right? Because you can sometimes see in a person, sometimes just sort of shining in their skin, if they're sort of telling you the truth, right? On the other hand, and you can see what the motive is, right? No motive for them telling you the truth or the lie, whatever the case may be. But also look at the consistency of the statements throughout, right? Because one thing that you're going to see in this, and the evidence is very clearly going to show this, is that the pretext that Mr. Piner is giving my client as sort of like a justification to out of this relationship after 8 years of being married together is religion. Jesus, Satan, and all sorts of stuff. And you're going to see those text messages, and you're going to see how Jesus and Satan are being invoked, literally invoked, in text message version format as a justification for ending the marriage on religious grounds. Conveniently, it also ends all financial obligations. And you're also going to see in these text messages scenes in which Mr. Piner is literally bragging about what a, quote, insane amount of money he makes, about what an insane amount of money he got to spend in 2021 and 22. And yet sometimes he denies Mr. Christopher like a $20 meal because, it's not approved by him. So I do agree with the plaintiff and the petitioner that this marriage should be ended on fair and just terms. And so for that reason, we're asking for very simple things. Disposition of the dog, disposition of Mr. Terry's personal belongings, which he hasn't seen since he was placed in jail. And there's a lot of those personal properties. To delineate the marital estate, you know, what is it, like what belongs in that marital estate, how it should be equitably divided between the two. There's a Toyota Prius that's gonna be discussed. There's going to be a Z350 Nissan that's going to be discussed. There may be some debts that are discussed as well. And so all of those things are things that you're gonna hear about that may be part of the marital estate, maybe separate property, maybe communal matrimonial property, and you're gonna sort of decide exactly, you know, what would be a fair and just determination of all of that. And okay, so one last thing. So there's been some insinuations that there has been physical violence as part of this marriage. Now, again, while you're listening to all these allegations, I just want you to focus very clearly on the consistency of the narrative throughout. Because we have 8 years to compare like these stories against. Look at the consistency. Has this been mentioned before? Or was it just mentioned in 2026 in the middle of a divorce litigation? And I want you to look at all those power dynamics between the plaintiff and the defendant, and I want you to sort of come to a conclusion of what is really going on here. And all of you, I can tell, are extremely competent, extremely capable, and extremely great at taking the time to serve as members of the jury for the next couple of hours. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polanco. We are ready for first witness on petitioner's behalf. Ms. Yarber?
I'd like to call my client, David Piner.
All right, Mr. Piner, if you come on up to the witness stand, but before you take a seat, turn and face Deputy Gordon, who's going to swear you in.
They got kicked out.
I've got Polanco in, the screen. Okay, yes, I'll do that in just a second.
Brian, you swear affirm the testimony you will give the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth, every God? Yes, sir. Lawyer, I'll see.
The chair doesn't have wheels. That's so people don't roll off to their death. So you got to sort of scooch it around.
State is what it has to work. David Piner, David Piner.
Mr. Piner, where do you currently reside?
In a one-bedroom apartment in Alpharetta.
How long have you lived there?
Since November of last year about, so I would say about 8 months.
Where were you residing prior to that?
At an apartment in Alpharetta off of Old Milton at 2207 Summerwood Lane.
Were you residing at that previous apartment with the opposing party?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. How old are you?
41.
Okay. And Mr. Piner, what's your current occupation?
Senior marketing technologist for a company called Virtual Marketing LLC, doing business as Fusion 92.
Okay. Is he going too fast for y'all? Or are y'all okay? Okay. If y'all need him to slow it down, and I'll tell him. Okay. Mr. Piner, how long have you worked there?
So I've worked at that company since, I believe, last year, so about a year and a couple of months. It was a transfer from a company called Fiserv. So I started work at Fiserv in September of 2016, but I had moved to this company through a transfer process from a full-time employee of Fiserv to a consultant at this consulting firm.
Okay. And can you describe to the court and the jurors the type of work that you do at your job?
So I manage B to B to C. So that's business to consumer marketing emails on behalf of over 500 financial institutions that are customers of Fiserv. And so as customers of Fiserv, they have clients. So if you think of Fiserv as a financial technology company, they have clients that purchase products from them. And then they have customers themselves. So your bank or credit union will have customers. And then what we do is on behalf of our client, which is them, and it's kind of confusing. I understand that, but essentially we send emails for someone, say like Georgia-owned credit union, right? We'll send that email as if it's Georgia-owned credit union or Truist or Bank of America, et cetera. And then in that process, it'll look like it came from them, but we'll be the ones to actually execute on that email for them because of our products. Like we do Zelle, we do like Transfer Now, which is a way you can move money between your own banks, and like credit cards and those kind of things.
Mr. Piner, do you have any secondary degrees or college degrees, anything like that?
No, ma'am. I
Okay.
finished 8th grade.
Okay. Are you self-trained in terms of learning how to do your profession?
Yes, ma'am. No
Okay.
college education.
Have you ever been married before this marriage?
No, ma'am.
Okay. And do you have any children from this relationship or any prior?
No, ma'am.
All right. Now, can you tell the court and the jury when you first met the opposing party, Mr. Terry?
Sometime in 2010.
Where were you all both living at that time?
He was living with his father in Arkansas, and I was living with my girlfriend in Indiana.
Okay. And briefly, how did you all meet?
We were on this video game called Second Life, and then also another video game called World of Warcraft, and we met on the video game.
Were you all online friends?
Yeah, we were online friends.
Okay. And at what point would you say, I know you all met in 2010, at what point would you say that you all maybe started dating?
I don't know how to answer that question because we never really traditionally dated. We were more friends and roommates throughout the time that we were together.
Okay, so at what point did you all decide to move in together and begin the roommate arrangement?
So he actually like visited us sometime in July of 2010, me and my girlfriend and her great grandmother. And then he sort of refused to go home. And then at that point, he sort of just lived with us from that point. And then I ended up living with his grandmother for a while. I rented a room from her. And then
Was that in Indiana also, or you were not in Indiana at that point?
No, that was in Statesboro, Georgia. We moved to Statesboro from Indiana and rented a room from his grandmother.
Well, I believe the court was inquiring about
Oh.
when he moved in with you and your girlfriend.
No,
That was in-
I was inquiring about the
Okay.
grandmother. 'Cause
Okay.
you said eventually you were renting a room from Mr. Terry's grandmother. I thought, well, that's a coincidence that that's in Indiana, but actually you and Mr. Terry, without your girlfriend,
Yeah.
moved from Indiana to Statesboro, Georgia.
Yes.
And you and he, Mr. Terry, had that room in Mr. Terry's grandmother's house.
Well, he had his own room and I rented my room.
Got it. So you guys had separate rooms
Yeah.
at Mr. Terry's grandmother's house in Statesboro, Georgia, not Indiana, where the two of you plus your girlfriend had been.
Right.
What year did you start renting the room at his grandmother's house in Statesboro?
2011
Okay. And how long did you all reside there?
until 2014. So I'd say about 3 years.
Were you paying the grandmother the entire time to stay there?
She let me stay there like a couple of months for free because I had some debt and I was trying to pay it back, but then they eventually wanted, some rent money.
Okay. What were you doing at that time to earn money?
So I was actually, and this is real, video game journalist. So what I did was there's this website called 10 Ton Hammer, and it basically published articles and guides about multiplayer online games. So you think about like EverQuest to World of Warcraft, Star Wars, The Old Republic, those kind of things. And so I actually got really lucky early on in my life and was able to get this job online writing about video games. So I actually wrote and managed other people who wrote about video games. And it was a 1099 sort of payment structure. So you had to do your own self-employment taxes. But I did that job for about 11 years.
What was the opposing party doing for work while you all both resided at his grandmother's house in Statesboro?
His grandmother took care of him at the time. He didn't have a job.
Okay. At what point did you all get engaged? Can you describe that to the court? To
As
the
far as
jury?
I'm aware, we never got engaged.
Okay, so how did it come about that you all got married and there was a marriage license?
So he had SSI and there was a redetermination occurring. And then the tax law was changing about dependents. So we made the decision to get married so that he could get benefits because he would lose his Medicaid if he lost his SSI. So we got married so that he would get benefits from my employer so that he wouldn't lose his health insurance.
Did you all go to the courthouse to get married?
It was, I don't know if it's, I don't know if it's the annex building, the North Fulton Annex building. I don't know if that's considered a courthouse.
Quasi courthouse.
Yeah, it's the annex building in, North Fulton.
The fake courthouse?
Yeah,
Okay. And what year was that?
2018.
In 2018, where did you all move to?
In 2018, we were living in that apartment in Alpharetta. So that was the Summerwood Lane.
Okay, so you moved from his grandmother's house in Statesboro to an apartment in Alpharetta, correct?
Yes, ma'am, in
How-
2016.
Okay. How would you describe your marriage to Mr. Terry kind of overall?
That's a question. I really don't know how to answer that. Difficult? Is that an answer?
That is an answer.
It was a very difficult thing because money was very, very difficult to manage in the relationship.
What were your daily routines like as a couple?
So it depended on how my work worked out. So if I was working from home, then I'd get up in the morning, get on my laptop, and then work until I was done, and then usually go cook dinner or whatever. If I had to work in the office, I'd have to get up, get dressed, drive in the office, then come home and then, fix dinner and all that good stuff. But generally it was work a job. And then as soon as, I get off, so I have to work like basically 9-hour days. I'd just, come home, play some video games or watch TV or whatever, and then go to bed.
How did you and Mr. Terry spend your free time together?
We often didn't spend free time together a lot. It really depended on what year or phase the relationship was. He spent a lot of time out of the house, with other his friends that he met and other people he was dating and whatnot. And then I would, basically stay home most of the time because I'd work and be tired and that kind of thing. When we did spend time together, it was usually we'd play like video games together, like World of Warcraft or League of Legends or something. But outside of that, we didn't really do much together.
Okay, so you stated that he would spend a lot of time hanging out with his friends and other people that he was dating.
Yeah.
Are you referring to dating as in romantic relationships?
Generally, yeah. I mean, he had a lot of different partners and he had, he used a Grinder app a lot. So he'd go meet what he called friends on the Grinder app. I would call them boyfriends because, like they were in love with one another and that kind of thing. He would say it was friends, and I'll respect that. I can understand he has different views on things, but he'd go out and, hang out with, these sexual partners of his.
Okay, for the ones that may not be aware, may you briefly explain to the court and the jury what the Grinder app is?
So Grindr is an app for men that are interested in other men to hook up with. I consider it a hookup app for men to have sex with other men. He described that as him making friends with other people, but sex was just somehow included in that friendship. My personal view of the app, though, is it's a hookup app. It's so, you find sexual partners, and generally some people see it as a dating app. So sometimes it's dating, sometimes it's just hooking up and that kind of thing.
Did you and Mr. Terry ever have a discussion about being exclusive to one another during your marriage?
He had issues if I were to go to date anyone because he felt that since I was asexual and that I really didn't like dating people, that it was insulting to him that I would go and date anybody, which is kind of fair because I'm like aromantic or asexual, so I'm not interested in that. And then as far as he was concerned, he could go do whatever he wanted to do, and anything to the contrary in his mind was control. And to some extent, I would agree with him. I would tell him that that's fine. I mean, you can't tell someone what they can go do or who they have sex with.
Understood. How would you state, Mr. Piner, that you all divided household responsibilities during the marriage?
I don't know how we would divide those responsibilities because we never really had conversations about that. And if it was brought up, it would become an argument. Because like he would want, if I wanted him to clean, he would want money for it. Or if I wanted him to do something, he would want to exchange that for money or something else like that. So it was either, I took care of it or I'd have to have a discussion with him that was generally not comfortable for me to have. So we really never officially like divided this is that. I did most of the cooking when the kitchen was usable in the apartment. For the periods the kitchen wasn't usable, we would just get to-go food. And then, he'd clean up, cans and stuff, and I'd clean up cans and stuff as well. And then, he would do a lot of the dog walking, because the dog had, he spent a lot of the time at home. He didn't have a job or anything, so he spent a lot laying on the floor holding on to the dog. And so the dog naturally was just, fine with him being walked by him. So he'd walk the dog a lot. I was also at work or working, so I didn't have a lot of time to do that.
When you say the kitchen was usable or not usable, what happened with the kitchen to make it not usable?
So there was a lot of hoarding going on in our home. And I would define hoarding as when the piles of stuff and clothes are yay high or higher. And so the kitchen oftentimes would get to a point where there was just to-go boxes and trash bags everywhere. And then at that point, you kind of don't want to cook in something like that, right? And I'm a bigger dude too. So unlike him, I can't scoot around all of this small walkway to go and do stuff like that. You know what I mean? So when the kitchen was just inaccessible, there was just no way to cook. And the only way to get food would be to eat out.
So it wasn't that things were broken in the kitchen. It was that, I think you just used the word inaccessible. That
Right.
meant we can't use the kitchen. I can't get in there. You want me to do the cooking unless you're going to airdrop me in there. I can't use it.
Right, yes, sir. And
Okay.
then, the stove's got stuff piled on it. You physically can't use the stove without clearing it off and.
Or setting the house on fire.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
So is it your testimony, Mr. Piner, that the opposing party basically did not help you clean unless you paid him some incentive for it?
Right, and even then, oftentimes he still wouldn't clean. And I don't want to fuss on that subject too long, but yeah, it was more of like I need to be incentivized to go clean. Or he also would make an argument that he needed Adderall to go clean, and I need to go help him get a prescription for Adderall. And then I'm not a doctor, so I can't help with that. But that was what he would share with me.
I would like to show the court and the jury what we have, what is going to be marked as Petitioner's Exhibit 2. It's a compilation of photographs of the home. I have shared a physical copy with counsel before placing it on the screen if there are any objections.
Okay, so we're talking petitioners 2. That's the exhibit number. Mr. Polanco, you've got a copy of it. Any objection to petitioners 2?
No, but what was petitioners 1?
There isn't yet.
It's not a-
So we're starting with 2. There may be 1, there may not. There's no requirement, but so I will admit petitioners 2. Now that it's admitted, you're free to publish it.
Okay. Mr. Piner, I'm going to place images on the screen via Zoom, also for you all, the jury, to get an idea of what we're talking about. And I'm going to scroll through the photos and I'd like you to just kind of narrate to the jury what it is that they're seeing on the screen, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can everyone, yeah, I see y'all can see it. Mr. Pine, I'm gonna scroll through, but I want you to kind of narrate to the jury what it is that they're seeing as I go down, okay?
All right, do I start with this one?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm just gonna keep going.
Okay, so after the temporary protective order was served, the apartment had failed a fire inspection, which if you fail a fire inspection, that's leading to eviction, right? So we had to get some of the stuff out of the apartment. And so that's a 10 by 10 storage unit full of Mr. Terry's stuff. It's a bunch of stuff he bought at Goodwill, or he got these lots on Mercari, or any of these shopping apps and eBay. So we stuffed it full. It's very full of the stuff that we were able to pull and extract from the apartment.
Now, what about the?
Can you hit the little arrow that's a circle, that should rotate things over in the lower right-hand corner? Yeah, there we go. Okay, thanks.
So this is after we went in and we hired the biohazard cleaners to clean everything out of the apartment. Plus we had to, me and some friends, had to come through and clean stuff out. So we cleared the whole apartment out to move out so that we wouldn't get stuck with like an unpayable bill, because they charge like 25 or 50 bucks a bag of trash. So we went through the apartment. You can see all the stains are basically where the walk-in paths were, but that was like the closets. That was some of the stains that were on the floor. So he would often pour trash on me. And so that specific spot right there is stained from like the wet stuff that would come down from whenever he'd pour trash on me. That was the secondary bathroom. That was the bathtub in the secondary bathroom. This bathtub really wasn't usable. It was a little bit too nasty. That was the living room. That was the main bathroom. So that was the bathroom me and him both took showers in. That was the second bedroom. That was the second bedroom. That was the utility room. So I cleared everything out of the utility room. I got everything out of it. This washing machine. That was the kitchen and the stove. That's more of the living room. So if you could stop at that photo up there real quick, if you look down here, you can see a literal path where the stuff was sitting, and those dark marks is where like you could walk, right? So that's where the dog and me and him would walk through, but those lighter areas is where stuff was at.
So these photos basically are the compilation of after you've cleared it out without the help of the opposing party, correct?
I did all that myself with Jamie and then someone named Matt or Joseph Foley. He flew in from Chicago to help some.
Okay, I'd like to now introduce what is we're going to call Petitioner's Exhibit 3 moving forward, which is going to be the biohazard photos. I've provided a copy to council.
No objection.
Which number?
P3, Judge.
3. Okay, it's admitted.
I'm going to share my screen again, Mr. Piner. Okay, I'm going to show you a compilation of photos just like the last, but can you start with this one?
Yeah, that's from him slamming the door really, really hard against the wall and the doorknob going through the door, the wall itself. This was a bookcase. That was the kitchen. This is an example of the kitchen being
Zoom out. So,
not really usable very much because there's just so much trash everywhere. This was taken around when the TPO was served. And
can you signify to the court the month and year that this was?
July of 2025.
Okay, let's keep going.
So there's the stove, and then you can't get to the refrigerator because there's all those boxes and stuff everywhere. There were a lot of Starbucks cups everywhere. There was a lot of Starbucks cups in that house. That's where he was residing most of the day. He would go and dance in the kitchen. So that's his bong, along with more of his Starbucks cups in the general area which he normally hung out in. That was the living room. That was the sofa. That's his stuff, mostly all on top of the sofa. It was just a bunch of clothes, shirts, pants, anything that wasn't soaked in urine or stained or had a really strong scent of urine was what we were able to transport to that storage unit.
Now, why would anything be soaked in urine?
Well, one was the dog. It would urinate on things. And then two, I would make allegations that he also urinated on things as well.
Okay.
That was the living room itself, and that was just the sofa. That was where he would keep, packages would come in, or he'd go to Goodwill or whatever, and he'd buy something and then he'd put it in this pile. Now, we had a storage unit back then, it was a much smaller one. If I took anything from the pile and moved it to storage, the pile would just get bigger somehow. So generally speaking, I'd leave that pile alone. This is a door. So one day he got into an argument with me and he ripped that door off of its handles. Now, doors are not actually in these apartment buildings full wooden doors. So they're actually made of and I got to see it firsthand when he ripped it off the wall and it fell apart. But they're a thin sheet of wood, and some wood boards between it. After he had ripped this door off, we got kind of worried about getting evicted from it. So he got some wood glue and we got some clamps and put the door back together.
Is this the hole in the wall that we previously showed to the jury?
Yeah, I believe so. Well, actually, is that the one behind the bed where he threw something? Is that one looks like the one that was behind the bed where he had thrown something one day and it put a hole in the wall?
Okay. So there were multiple holes in the walls.
There were a lot of holes in the wall. I plastered over them though. That was just more of the kitchen, the countertop. And that's the kitchen. That's his bong along with, his soda cans, plates and stuff. Never got to really use that toaster oven because it's inaccessible to me. But yeah, that's mostly where he hung out at. After the apartment failed that fire inspection, we had to get the apartment manager was very clear. We had to have a walking path that was big enough for a person to walk through all the major areas of the home. So me, Jamie, and eventually Joseph Foley, who flew in from Chicago, worked to put things in contractor bags to go put them up in the outside storage unit so we could get that walking path clear to buy some more time before they'd evict us. So this is as I was making progress on cleaning it out. So this is after, I want to say about a month of cleaning. We were able to get all of the stuff, started bagging it up and everything. The funny thing about this photo is that this wasn't even the start. You would think this looks nice, but there's so much more trash. Because when the biohazard people came and to move the sofas and the furniture and a bunch of other stuff that you didn't want to kind of touch, underneath that sofa there was a lot more trash. But this is just making progress. So this is us getting a pile of stuff off the sofa. You can start seeing the sofa again. You could start seeing his computer area again. We were able to kind of get through and over there. This is the back bedroom, the second bedroom. So this isn't the one we slept in. Well, he actually slept in this bedroom, but he slept in the floor for some reason, which it's another discussion for another day. That's the closet with his stuff. That's the bed. And you can see the urine stains on the bed and then, just trash and stuff. A lot of the possessions or items in the house were from his mother who had passed. So he had moved a bunch of that stuff in there as well. A lot of that got stored beside the bed. So that's the dog's bed right there. It's inside of that little container house thing. And then just more of his stuff and then those containers that he had his stuff in. Oh yeah, that's the bed. Yeah, I slept in that bed. Oh, Jesus Christ almighty. That's the back bedroom. That's my computer chair. And then when we had it a little bit cleaner during the pandemic, it wasn't 100% always like this. It would ebb and flow. So it'd get really messed up and then it would get cleaned out and it'd get really messed up. But if you go back to that other photo, you'll see these like display racks in the back. He got those from Steinmart during the pandemic. And so like, you know, he hung his stuff up there, but then over time, more stuff would come in the house. And you couldn't even get back there to that kind of stuff. That was the bathroom and the second bathroom. That was the master bedroom closet, with his stuff in it. There's Sozo.
Is this a dog in question?
Yes, ma'am, that's the
Okay.
dog in question. That's him sitting on the sofa after we cleaned it out a bit. I took this with the Ring camera. It has
Let
the,
me flip it, Judge.
yeah, it has the date on it. But that was on 8/15, and that's about how much progress we had. Now, I do want to say that me personally and many other people had told me it smelled of urine. A lot of people use the word ammonia. I'm not a chemist, so I can't stand behind the word ammonia, but it smelled of urine. So we had to keep candles lit anytime someone came over to help clean because it just was getting really bad. I eventually had to get a respirator to go in there and work because, you know, I'd start coughing or it was really hard to breathe while in that apartment.
Mr. Piner, how much did it cost to clean all of that up?
So I paid the biohazard company. I had to call a lot of them because it's freaking me out because they were giving me some crazy prices. I believe one of the quotes were approximately like $5,800 for them to come in and help clean. But I found a place that was willing to work with me for $1,600 to do a limited scope amount of cleaning. So mostly the sold things, the things that had to go and be like, you know, bagged up and took into the biohazard place and all that. They came and they were charged me $1,600, but then I had to pay for contractor bags. I had to pay for disposal of things. I had to pay to move his stuff around. I can't give you an approximate number for that, but it was I would say at least $1,500 to $2,000 in additional costs just in like the respirator and the bags, and transport and renting because